The shuttle docked with a soft thud that Lyra felt in her bones. She stood at the airlock window and looked at the station floating in the darkness of space. Axiom's Truth, her new home, the first human ever assigned to serve with the Galactic Union. She picked up her bag and waited for the doors to open. The airlock hissed and slid apart. Cold air rushed in, carrying strange smells she could not name. Standing on the other side were three beings that looked nothing like her. The tallest one was made of something like purple crystal. Light moved inside its body like slow lightning. The second had 6 arms and a hard shell covering its entire form. Its eyes were black and shiny like wet stones. The third floated in a tank of green water mounted on a metal frame with wheels. "Commander," said the crystal being. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am 7, Navigation Officer. Welcome to the Axiom's Truth." Lyra stepped through the airlock. "Thank you, it is good to be here." The creature in the water tank moved closer. Lyra saw gills fluttering on its neck and large eyes that seemed to look right through her. "I am Ensign. I will show you to your quarters." The 6-armed one said nothing. It simply stared at Lyra with its black eyes, and then it turned and walked away without a word. 7 made a sound that might have been a sigh. "That was Chief Science Officer. He is. They are not known for warm greetings." Lyra watched disappear around a corner. "I understand. Different species, different ways." Floated beside her as they walked through the station's long corridors. The walls were smooth and gray. Lights glowed from panels in the ceiling. Crew members of many different species passed by, and all of them stopped to look at Lyra. Some whispered to each other. Some simply stared. "They have never seen a human before," said. Her voice came from a speaker on her tank, but it was soft and kind. "You are the first." "I know," Lyra said. "I will try not to disappoint." Her quarters were small but comfortable. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out at the stars. Lyra put down her bag and sat on the bed. She was tired from the long journey, but she could not rest yet. She had work to do. The next morning, she reported to the main science bay. Was there, standing at a large console covered in symbols she did not understand. He did not look at her when she entered. "Commander," he said, "you will observe today. Do not touch anything." Lyra stood near the wall and watched. The science team worked on samples collected from a nearby moon. They used tools that floated in the air and machines that hummed with strange energy. Lyra paid close attention and tried to learn. After several hours, finally turned to face her. "Hold out your hand," he said. Lyra did as he asked, pressed a small device against her palm. It beeped twice. "Grip this," he said, holding out a metal cylinder. Lyra squeezed it as hard as she could. The device beeped again. Looked at the readings. His black eyes showed no emotion, but something in his posture changed. He put the cylinder away and returned to his work without another word. 3 days later, Lyra was called to the station commander's office. Commander was like 7, but older. Cracks ran through its crystal body like old scars. It sat behind a wide desk and watched Lyra with glowing eyes. "Please sit," said. Lyra sat in the chair across from the desk. It was too big for her, made for larger species. Her feet did not quite touch the floor. "Chief Science Officer has submitted a capability assessment," said. "It is standard for all new crew members. However, his report on you is thorough." Slid a data tablet across the desk. Lyra picked it up and began to read. The report was long. It described humans in cold, scientific terms. Thin skin, easily damaged, limited hearing and smell, eyes that could only see a narrow range of light, bones that were brittle compared to most species, muscles that were weak. The grip strength test showed 40, which the report noted was lower than any other sapient species in the Galactic Union. The conclusion was simple. Humans were fragile. Commander should be restricted to administrative duties only. She was not suitable for field work, away missions, or any task that involved physical risk. Lyra read the whole thing, then she read it again. "Do you have any response?" asked. Lyra set the tablet down. "No, Commander, the measurements are accurate." Tilted its head. Light flickered inside its crystal skull. "You do not wish to dispute the findings." "No," Lyra said. "Chief Science Officer measured what he measured. I will not argue with facts." "Then you accept the restrictions." Lyra was quiet for a moment. She looked out the window at the stars burning in the endless black. Then she looked back at. "I accept that he believes I am weak," she said. "I accept that his measurements support that belief. I do not accept that his measurements tell the whole story." Leaned forward, "Explain." "On my world," Lyra said, "we have a saying. You do not know what someone is capable of until you see them pushed to their limit. Measured me at rest. He measured me when nothing was wrong. He has not seen what I can do when something is very, very wrong." Studied her for a long time. Then it made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Very well, Commander. You will follow the restrictions for now, but I will keep your words in mind." Lyra stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she turned back. "One more thing, Commander. I would like access to the gravity training chamber, the one designed for high-G species." Flickered with surprise. "That facility is extremely dangerous for someone of your physiology. Would never approve it." "I know," Lyra said, "but I am asking anyway." "I will consider it," said. Lyra nodded and left. She walked back to her quarters with the same calm expression she always wore, but inside something had changed. A fire had been lit. That night she stayed awake long after the station's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle. She looked at her hands in the darkness. Small hands, soft hands, hands that had been measured and found wanting. She smiled. Then she began to plan. The weeks passed slowly for Lyra. Every day was the same. She woke up before everyone else. She did her exercises alone in her quarters, push-ups until her arms shook, squats until her legs burned, grip exercises with a metal bar she had taken from the maintenance bay. Then she showered, dressed, and reported for duty. Her duty was nothing: filing reports, organizing data, watching others do the real work while she sat at a desk and typed on a screen, had made sure of that. When away missions were assigned, her name was never on the list. When the research teams went out to collect samples from dangerous places, she stayed behind. When there was any task that involved risk or strength or courage, Lyra was told to wait in the station. She never complained. She never argued. She simply did her work and smiled and said yes to everything. But the crew noticed that she was always tired. Dark circles formed under her eyes. Her meals were larger than before. She ate protein and drank water like someone preparing for a long battle. And every night, long after the station went quiet, she disappeared. Seven was the first to notice. The navigation officer did not sleep the way humans did, entered a state of rest where their crystal bodies became still but their minds remained aware. During one of these rest periods, Seven saw Lyra walking past his quarters. It was 3 hours before the morning shift. Her clothes were damp with sweat and her hands were wrapped in bandages. He said nothing, but he began to watch her more closely. Notice, too, the young had become Lyra's only real friend on the station. They ate meals together when their schedules allowed, floated in her water tank, and Lyra sat in a chair beside her, and they talked about their homes and their lives and their dreams. "The others think you are strange," said one day. "They say humans are mysterious. They say you hide things." Lyra smiled. "All species hide things." "Yes, but humans hide them better." His large eyes studied her. "You are in pain. I can feel it. Your body hurts." Lyra looked down at her hands. The bandages covered blisters that had become calluses that had become blisters again. Her shoulders ached every morning. Her back was stiff. Her fingers sometimes trembled when she tried to hold a cup. "I am training," she said. "For what?" Lyra did not answer. She just looked out the window at the stars. was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been in her mind for weeks. What was your world like, Earth? Lyra thought about it. She thought about blue skis and green trees and oceans so vast that you could sail for months and never see land. She thought about mountains covered in ice and deserts that burned under a merciless sun. She thought about hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanoes that painted the sky with fire. It was beautiful, she said, and it was trying to kill us every single day. Did not understand. Your own planet tried to kill you. Everything on Earth is dangerous, Lyra said. The weather can freeze you or burn you or drown you. The animals hunt you and poison you and eat you alive. The water is full of creatures with teeth. The land shakes and splits open. Even the air carries diseases that can kill millions in a season. She paused. And we survived all of it. Not because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we refused to die. Was silent for a long time. In the Galactic Union's records, Earth was classified as a Category 12. Only the most hostile planets received that rating. Most sapient species evolved on gentle worlds with stable climates and few predators. The idea that humans came from such a violent place was difficult to believe. You should not exist, finally said. Lyra laughed. It was a warm sound full of genuine amusement. That is what the universe keeps telling us, and we keep ignoring it. Meanwhile was growing frustrated. Something was wrong with the human, but he could not determine what. She followed every rule. She obeyed every order. She never caused any problems. And yet she kept requesting access to the gravity training chamber. The chamber was a room where artificial gravity could be increased to many times normal levels. Species from high-gravity worlds used it to maintain their strength. For a human, entering that room would be like having a great weight placed on every part of the body. Bones could crack, organs could fail, blood could pool in the legs and starve the brain. It was no place for something as fragile as a human. Every request, Lyra kept asking, he them again, she asked again. It became a pattern between them, a silent battle of wills that neither would acknowledge. Then the maintenance logs crossed desk during a routine review. Someone had been accessing the gravity chamber during off hours, every night for 40 consecutive nights. The entry codes had been scrambled, but the power usage was clear. Someone was spending hours in that room at gravity levels that would crush most species. Felt a chill run through his shell. He ordered a full medical scan of all crew members. The results came back the next day. Everything was normal except for one person. Commander Lyra showed a 12% increase in bone density since her arrival on the station. Her muscle mass had grown. Her grip strength, when measured again, had increased by nearly 30%. The physician flagged it as a clerical error. Such changes were not possible in such a short time, not for any known species. Looked at the data for a long time. Then he looked at the security feed from the corridor outside the gravity chamber. He watched a small human woman walk inside with bandaged hands and a calm expression. He watched her stay for 3 hours. He watched her walk out again, barely able to stand, and disappear into the station's darkness. He did not know what to do with this information, so he filed it away and said nothing. But he began to watch her with different eyes, not the eyes of a scientist measuring a specimen, the eyes of something that was beginning to feel, for the first time in its long life, the faint stirrings of fear. In her quarters that night, Lyra unwrapped the bandages from her hands and looked at the damage, blood and torn skin and raw flesh. She cleaned the wounds and wrapped them again. Then she lay down on her bed and stared at the ceiling. 40 nights. Her body was screaming at her to stop. Every part of her was broken and healing and breaking again. Normal training did not work like this. Normal training was slow and careful and safe. But Lyra was not training for normal. She was training for the moment when everything went wrong. The moment when the only thing standing between life and death was how much pain she could endure. The moment when being weak would mean watching others die. She closed her eyes and saw the faces of her crew, Seven with his slow lightning, in her water tank, even who looked at her like she was something less than real. They did not believe in her. That was fine. She did not need their belief. She only needed one chance. She fell asleep with her ruined hands pressed against her chest and dreamed of steel bending beneath her fingers. The alarm screamed through the station like a wounded animal. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Crew members ran in all directions, their voices raised in panic and confusion. Lyra was in her quarters when it started. She had been reading a report about mineral samples from a nearby asteroid. Boring work, safe work, the kind of work thought she was suited for. Then the alarm came, and everything changed. She dropped the tablet and ran. Her feet pounded against the metal floor as she raced toward the source of the chaos. Other crew members passed her going the opposite direction, away from the danger. That was the smart thing to do. That was what training told them to do. Lyra ran toward it. The shuttle bay was on the lower level of the station. It was a massive room where small ships docked and launched. When Lyra arrived, she found a crowd gathered outside the sealed doors. Seven was there. Commander was there, its crystal body flickering with agitation. What happened? Lyra pushed through the crowd. Seven turned to her. His voice was faster than usual, the wind chimes sound harsh with stress. The atmospheric containment system failed. Shuttle Bay 3 is flooded with toxic gas from the planet below. We were collecting samples when the seal broke. Lyra looked at the sealed doors. They were massive, made of thick metal designed to hold back the vacuum of space itself. Above them, a display screen showed the status inside. Oxygen levels 0. Toxin levels fatal. 4 life signs still active. Who is inside? 2 engineers said. His voice was cold and steady, but his 6 arms were twitching. 1 pilot, an ensign. Lyra felt something cold grip her heart. Her friend. The only one on this station who had treated her like a person from the very first day. We have to get them out. We cannot, pointed at the doors. The emergency bulkhead sealed automatically. It is a gravity door designed to hold against any force. The only way to open it is the manual release, but that requires 900 of rotational force. No species aboard can generate that much. Lyra stared at him, then we cut through. The door is 20 centimeters of reinforced steel alloy. Our cutting tools will take 40 minutes to breach it. The crew inside will be dead in 12. The numbers hung in the air like a death sentence. Lyra looked at the display again. 4 life signs, already weaker than before. The toxic gas was eating away at them with every passing second. There must be something we can do. Shook his head. His black eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something other than cold judgment in them. She saw sorrow. I am sorry, Commander. Mathematics does not lie. They are beyond our reach. Commander stepped forward. Its cracked crystal body glowed with a soft, sad light. We will honor their sacrifice. Their names will be recorded in the station's memorial. Their families will be with the highest respect. No, 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 no. Lyra walked toward the door. The crowd parted to let her through, confused by the look on her face. It was not grief. It was not fear. It was something harder, something older, something that had been burning inside her for 40 nights in a room where gravity tried to crush her into dust. She reached the manual release. It was a large wheel set into the wall beside the door. Red warning symbols covered it. The wheel was designed to be turned by the strongest species in the Galactic Union, in emergencies so extreme that machines could not help. Even then, it usually required 3 or 4 individuals working together. Lyra wrapped her hands around it. Commander's voice was sharp. What are you doing? She did not answer. She planted her feet. She felt the cold metal against her palms. Her hands were still from weeks of training. The wounds had barely healed before she tore them open again. Now they would tear again. She did not care. The door cannot be opened by a human, said. Your species does not have the strength, the report clearly stated. Your report, Lyra said quietly, was wrong. She pulled. Nothing happened. The wheel did not move. Her muscles screamed and her joints popped and her vision blurred from the strain. She pulled harder. The metal groaned but held firm. Stepped forward. Stop this. You will hurt yourself. Lyra ignored him. She adjusted her grip. She widened her stance. She thought about floating in her tank, struggling to breathe. She thought about the others, strangers she had never met, dying alone in the dark. She thought about every time someone had told her she was not strong enough. Something changed inside her. A switch flipped. A door opened. Deep in her brain, in the ancient parts that remembered when humans were prey animals running from things with claws and teeth, a signal went out. A signal that said, this is life or death. Hold nothing back. Adrenaline flooded her system. Her heart rate doubled. Blood rushed to her muscles. Pain signals were blocked. Fear was silenced. Every cell in her body aligned toward one single purpose. She pulled. The wheel moved, made a sound that his species had not made in 10,000 years, a sound of shock so deep that it bypassed language entirely. Lyra pulled again. The wheel turned further. Her boots scraped against the deck plating, leaving marks in the metal. The tendons in her forearms stood out like steel cables. Blood vessels burst in her eyes, turning the white parts red. She pulled. The door began to groan. Not just the wheel now, but the entire door. The frame shuddered. The hinges screamed. The metal itself began to bend and warp around the edges. Lyra's hands were bleeding. The old scars had torn open and new wounds formed beneath them. Blood made her grip slippery. She squeezed harder. She felt bones cracking in her fingers. She did not stop. She could not stop. Somewhere far away, she heard voices shouting. Someone was calling her name. Someone was telling her that what she was doing was impossible, that humans could not do this, that she was going to kill herself. She did not listen. She thought about Earth. She thought about all the things that had tried to kill her species. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Plagues that wiped out half the population. Predators with jaws that could crush bone. Wars that burned entire cities to ash. Humans had survived all of it, not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, but because they simply refused to die. Lyra refused to let her friends die. She gave one final pull. Every muscle in her body fired at once. Her skeleton groaned under forces it was never designed to handle. Her vision went white with pain. And the door opened. Toxic air rushed out, but the station's filters engaged immediately, sucking the gas away before it could spread. Emergency crews rushed in with masks and tanks. They carried out the two engineers and the pilot, unconscious but alive. Then they carried out's tank. The water was murky with toxins, but the gills were still moving. She was still breathing. She was alive. Lyra tried to take a step toward her friend. Her legs gave out. She fell against the door frame, leaving a mark where her shoulder hit the metal. Someone caught her before she hit the ground. Commander, it was Seven, his crystal arm surprisingly strong. Stay awake. Medical team to the shuttle bay immediately. Lyra looked down at her hands. They did not look like hands anymore. They looked like raw meat wrapped around broken sticks. She could not feel them at all. She smiled. Then everything went dark. The medical bay was quiet. Soft lights glowed from the ceiling, and machines hummed with gentle rhythms. Lyra lay in a bed designed for species twice her size, her hands wrapped in regenerative gel that slowly repaired the damage she had done to herself. She had been unconscious for 2 days. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Seven standing by the window. The turned when he heard her move, and light rippled through his crystal body like a wave. "You are awake," he said. His wind chime voice was softer than she had ever heard it. "The physicians were not certain you would survive." Lyra tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Seven brought her water, holding the cup to her lips because her hands were too damaged to hold anything. "The others," she managed to say, "the crew from the shuttle bay, are they?" "Alive, all of them. The engineers will make full recoveries. The pilot has some permanent lung damage but will be able to return to light duty." He paused. "Ensign is asking to see you. She has been waiting outside for many hours." Lyra closed her eyes. Relief washed through her, warm and sweet. They were alive. She had not failed. "What happened to me?" Seven was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was strange, almost confused. "That is what everyone wishes to know. Chief Science Officer has been analyzing the sensor data from the shuttle bay. He has watched the recordings many times. He still does not understand what he saw." "What did he see?" "He saw a human do something impossible." The door opened and walked in. His 6 arms were folded against his body, and his black eyes fixed on Lyra with an intensity that would have been frightening if she had the energy to feel fear. "Commander," he said, "you should be dead." Lyra almost laughed. "I have been told that many times." Walked to her bedside. He carried a data tablet in one of his arms, and he held it up so she could see the numbers on the screen. "When I first measured your grip strength, you registered 40. That is weak even by human standards. Most species on this station can generate 200 or more." He scrolled down the screen. "At the moment you forced the door open, our sensors recorded your grip at 1,340. Lyra blinked. "That seems high." "It is not just high, it is impossible." His voice cracked with something that might have been frustration or wonder or both. "No human has ever been recorded generating that much force. No biological organism without an exoskeleton should be capable of it. Your muscle fibers should have torn completely. Your bones should have shattered. Your tendons should have snapped like old rope." "They did tear," Lyra said quietly. "And some bones did break. I felt them go." "Yes, the scans show massive tissue damage throughout your hands and forearms. Stress fractures in 6 locations, torn ligaments in both shoulders, internal bleeding in multiple muscle groups." Set down the tablet. "And yet you kept pulling. Your body was destroying itself and you kept pulling." "My friends were dying." Stared at her. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he asked the question that had been burning in his mind since he first watched the recording. "How?" Lyra thought about how to explain it. She thought about trying to describe the ancient parts of the human brain, the parts that remembered being hunted across the African plains, the parts that knew what it meant to be prey, the parts that could, in moments of extreme crisis, unlock reserves of strength that the body normally kept locked away. "Humans are not designed for normal," she finally said. "We are designed for survival. Most of the time, we only use a small part of what our bodies can do. It would be too dangerous otherwise. We would burn out, break down. But when something threatens us, when the people we love are in danger, something changes. A wall comes down, and for a little while we can do things that should not be possible." "Your body was breaking." "Yes." "And you did not stop." "No." Was silent. Seven watched from the window, his light flickering with emotions that Lyra could not read. "I have served with many species," finally said. "I have seen lift boulders that would crush a vehicle. I have seen survive temperatures that would melt steel. I have seen things that most humans would call miracles." He paused. "I have never seen anything like what you did." "I am not special," Lyra said. "Any human could have done what I did. We all have that same switch inside us. We all have that wall that can come down. The only question is what makes us reach for it." "And what made you reach for it?" Lyra thought about floating in her tank, struggling to breathe. She thought about strangers she had never met, dying alone in the dark. She thought about the feeling of metal bending beneath her fingers. "They were my crew," she said simply. "I could not let them die." Picked up his tablet again. He scrolled to a different page. "I have submitted a report to Commander, a different report than my first one. I have recommended that my original assessment be permanently removed from your record." "You do not have to do that." "Yes, I do." His black eyes met hers. "I was wrong about you, Commander. I was wrong about your species. My report measured you at rest when nothing was threatening you, when you had no reason to push yourself. I measured the smallest part of what you are capable of and concluded that it was all you had." He turned and walked toward the door. Before he left, he stopped and looked back. "The door has been removed from the shuttle bay. It is being preserved in the station's historical archives." Lyra frowned. "Why?" "Because of the handprint." She did not understand. What handprint? Gestured for Seven to help her. The carefully supported her as she stood, her legs weak and shaky, and guided her to a small screen on the wall. He pressed a button and an image appeared. It was the door. The gravity door, 20 centimeters of reinforced steel alloy, designed to withstand forces that would destroy a starship. And there, pressed into the metal like a signature carved into stone, was the clear and unmistakable shape of a human hand. Not a mark, not a smear, a handprint, pressed so deep into the solid steel that the metal had permanently deformed around every finger, every line, every curve of the palm. Lyra stared at it. She could not speak. "You gripped so hard that you crushed the door," Seven said quietly. "Not just turned the wheel, crushed the frame. The metal bent around your hand like soft clay." "That is impossible," Lyra whispered. "So everyone keeps saying." His voice was dry, but there was something new in it, something that almost sounded like respect. "And yet there it is, a human handprint pressed into solid steel, evidence that cannot be or explained away." He walked through the door and disappeared into the corridor, leaving Lyra staring at the image of her own hand, immortalized in metal. The next day came to visit. Her tank had been cleaned and refilled with fresh water, and her gills moved smoothly as she floated beside Lyra's bed. "I remember the door opening," said. "I remember seeing you standing there, covered in blood, with that look on your face. I remember thinking that you looked like something from a nightmare, something that was not going to stop until it finished what it came to do." Lyra smiled weakly. "I am sorry I scared you." "You did not scare me." His large eyes were warm. "You saved me. You saved all of us. I will never forget that. I just did what any human would do." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You keep saying that. But the more I learn about humans, the more I think that is exactly what makes your species terrifying. Not that you can do impossible things, but that you think it is normal." Lyra had no answer for that. She just looked out the window at the stars and thought about the handprint that would remain long after she was gone. A mark in solid steel. A reminder of what humans could do when they decided something mattered. 3 weeks passed before Lyra was cleared to leave the medical bay. Her hands had healed, though the scars would never fully fade. The regenerative gel had done its work, rebuilding torn muscle and mending broken bone, but her body remembered what she had put it through. Some mornings her fingers still ached. Some nights she woke with phantom pain shooting through her arms. She did not mind. Pain was the price of survival. Humans had always known that. On the day she was discharged, she found waiting outside her quarters. The stood very still, his 6 arms folded against his body, his black eyes fixed on the floor. He looked different somehow. Smaller, less certain of himself. "Chief Science Officer," Lyra said, "is something wrong?" Looked up. "May I speak with you, Commander?" "Of course." He followed her inside. Her quarters looked the same as always. Small bed, simple desk, window full of stars, stood near the door, his hard shell gleaming under the soft lights. "I have been a scientist for 200 years," he said. In that time, I have studied many species. I have learned to measure and classify and predict. I have built my entire understanding of the universe on data and evidence and logic." He paused. "You have broken something in me, Commander." Lyra sat on her bed and looked at him with curiosity. "What do you mean?" "I mean that nothing in my training prepared me for what you did. I measured you. I analyzed you. I concluded that you were weak. And then I watched you crush solid steel with your bare hands while your bones shattered beneath your skin." His voice shook slightly. "That should not be possible. It violates every biological principle I have ever learned. And yet you did it without hesitation, without doubt, without any consideration for your own survival." "I considered my survival," Lyra said quietly. "I just decided that it was less important than theirs." Was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into a compartment in his shell and pulled out a data tablet. Lyra recognized it. It was the same tablet that contained his original assessment of her, the one that called her frail and weak and unsuitable for anything beyond paperwork. "I wish to submit an amendment," he said. "I have already filed it with Commander, but I wanted you to see it first." He handed her the tablet. Lyra scrolled to the new section and read. The amendment was short, just one paragraph. "Previous assessment failed to account for human persistence under extreme circumstances. Recommend immediate reclassification. Note: humans do not operate at peak capacity under normal conditions. They operate at survivable capacity. Peak capacity is reserved for circumstances this officer hopes never to witness again. The door has been preserved as evidence. Let no species who views it question what humans are capable of when they decide something matters." Lyra read it twice, then she looked up at. "You forgot something," she said. The tilted his head. "What?" "The handprint is not evidence of what I am capable of. It is evidence of what any human is capable of. We all have that inside us, every single one of us. The only question is what makes us reach for it." She handed the tablet back, took it slowly, as if handling something precious. "I do not understand your species," he admitted. "I do not know if I ever will, but I know that I was wrong about you, and I know that my ignorance almost cost 4 lives. For that, I am sorry." Lyra stood and walked toward him. She held out her hand, the human gesture of peace, of friendship, of respect between equals. Looked at her hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended one of his 6 arms and wrapped his hard fingers around her soft ones. His grip was careful, gentle, as if he was afraid of hurting something he no longer saw as fragile. "You are not weak," he said. "Neither are you," Lyra replied. "It takes strength to admit when you are wrong." They made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then he released her hand and walked out, leaving her alone with the stars. 1 week later, the Galactic Union voted on the Human Integration Program. The trial period was over. The decision would determine whether humans would be allowed to serve alongside the 11 founding species, or whether they would be rejected as too primitive, too limited, too weak. Commander presented the evidence: his original assessment, the records of Lyra's restricted duties, the incident in the shuttle bay, the sensor data showing what should have been impossible, and finally an image of the door. The handprint gleamed in the light of the council chamber. Every delegate could see the shape of a human hand pressed deep into metal that should not bend. The vote was unanimous. The door was transported to the Galactic Union's Central Historical Archives, where artifacts of great significance were preserved for all species to study. It was placed in a prominent position, visible to every visitor who passed through. The placard beneath it was simple: "Human Persistence, Exhibit 1. Beneath that, in smaller letters, someone had etched a single line. They called her Frail. Lyra never saw the exhibit. She was too busy with her new duties. After the vote, Commander promoted her to full integration officer with unrestricted access to all station activities. She went on away missions. She joined research teams. She worked alongside species who had once looked at her like she was made of glass. Seven became her partner on navigation duty. He taught her to read the star charts that guided ships between galaxies, and she taught him human songs that he tried to reproduce with his wind chime voice. Recovered fully from the toxin exposure, she and Lyra continued to share meals together, though now their conversations were different, deeper, asked endless questions about Earth, about humans, about the strange and terrible things that had forged such a stubborn species. "Do all humans know they can do what you did?" asked one day. Lyra thought about it. "No, most of us never find out. We live our whole lives without ever being pushed that far. We never learn what we are capable of because we never have to." "Is that not sad, to have such power and never know it?" Lyra shook her head. "No, I think it is beautiful. It means most humans live peaceful lives, safe lives. They never have to discover what they can do because they never face anything that demands it." She paused. "But when those moments come, when the universe pushes us to the edge, we find out what we really are. And I think that is what makes us human. Not that we can do impossible things, but that we carry the potential for impossible things inside us, waiting for the moment when it matters." Was quiet for a long time. Her large eyes reflected the starlight streaming through the window. "I am glad you came to this station," she finally said. "I am glad I met you." "I am glad I met you too," Lyra smiled. "You were worth crushing a door for." Laughed. It was a beautiful sound, bubbling up through the water in her tank like music. Years later, long after Lyra had returned to Earth to train the next generation of human integration officers, visitors still came to the archives to see the door. They came from every corner of the galaxy, species of every shape and size, all of them wanting to see the evidence with their own eyes. They stood before the handprint pressed into solid steel. They read the placard and the small words etched beneath it, and they wondered what kind of creature could do such a thing. Some left afraid. Some left inspired. All of them left knowing that humans were not as weak as they appeared, that somewhere inside those soft bodies and short lives burned something old and fierce and unbreakable, something that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars, something that refused to die. The universe was vast and cold and full of dangers, but humans had walked out of it, looked at the stars, and decided to claim them. And the handprint in the steel would remind everyone forever that when a human decided something mattered, nothing in the universe could stop them. Not even the universe itself.